one of my favorite countries. Canada is my most favorite, but in recent years, I've really learned a deep appreciation of our mother country, namely the United Kingdom. Not only do I love it because of its history, its architecture, its language, its poetry, I'll skip cuisine, although it's not that bad, but because I sometimes call it a dystopian time machine. If we want to see how things will be in Canada in 5 years, if we keep on current trends, whether it's censorship, the Islamification of the public square, mass immigration, street crime, well, look to the UK today. That's Canada in 5 years. We've also gotten involved a little bit over there. As you know, our former journalist, Tommy Robinson, who has gone on to his own journalism and activism, from time to time winds up in prison, never for a violent crime. In fact, this last imprisonment isn't for a crime at all. It's for civil contempt. And we find ourselves reporting on it and in some cases even crowdfunding his legal fees. So there's a lot to talk about. And a man who follows things closer than most is a journalist and broadcaster from the UK, our friend David Atherton, who's agreed to spend a little bit of time with us today. David, welcome back to the program. It's great to see you again.
And you, it's always a pleasure to go on the show.
Well,
it really is. I've certainly carved out a niche amongst the Commonwealth these days. I do quite a bit of work for Australia as well.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, I think Australia and Canada are very similar in terms of our size and some of the same issues that I just talked about, freedom of speech, immigration, et cetera. Now, there was some news in the past couple of days from the UK that normally I think would be huge headlines in Canada. The Conservative Party of the UK, which got crushed in the last election under their sort of robotic leader, Rishi Sunak, had a leadership race. And there were two finalists. One was named Mr. Jenrick, who was actually very hard line on a number of issues. He talked about mass deportation of foreign migrants. And the other contender was Kemi Badenoch, a Nigerian Brit who is really tough on those issues too. And Kemi won. She's more hardline than Rishi Sunak was. Give me a word on Kemi Badenoch. And I say that it would be bigger news if she were a woman of the left, because a black woman leading the Conservative Party, the party of Margaret Thatcher, would be huge news. But because she's a conservative, no one over here in the media, in the regime media, want to give it any airtime. Give me your thoughts on Kemi.
Well, it's very, very interesting that, sort of the small C Conservatives and the Conservatives, said, Kemi Badenoch, Prime Minister, moderate policies. And all the left and the Liberals are going, oh, she's black. It's ironical that the Conservative Party in Britain had the first Jewish Prime Minister, 1865, Benjamin Disraeli, had the first, leader, I should say. In 1975, they had the first woman leader, which was obviously Baroness Thatcher. And 2022 was Rishi Sunak, the first Asian Prime Minister, and now she's obviously the first black African leader the Conservative Party's got. And it's a lot more than what the socialists have done. They just do not seem to be able to attract the talent, from the BAME community that's worthy of getting to the top. And the thing is, there's always a suspicion, with the socialists and the Labour Party and everybody else, that if somebody from a minority or sex or whatever did become leader, is it a DEI hire, diversity, equity, and inclusion hire, rather than with the Conservative Party, for sure she's there on merit and not because they're sort of, what's the word, being patronising towards people of, whether by sex, sexuality, or colour.
Yeah, Keir Starmer, the Labour Party Prime Minister, put out a tweet congratulating her and didn't refer to any of her ideas or accomplishments other than her blackness. And, it on the one hand, it is a powerful antidote to the accusations that conservatives are racist. On the other hand, it sort of reduces her to nothing more than her immutable characteristics that she really has nothing to do with. Let me play a little clip for you, David. This is a montage put together by Turning Point UK of some of Kemi's stances on different issues. Let's just show our viewers that, and then let's come back and you and I can talk a little bit about what she stands for. Here's Kemi Badenoch in her own words. Take a look.
I don't think that a culture that thinks gay people should be stoned is as valid as ours. We do not want to see teachers teaching their white pupils about white privilege and inherited racial guilt.
People should not be made to feel guilty for questioning levels of immigration, legal or illegal, if it is changing the place they know and love. If people don't want their taxes to pay for foreign criminals to be in our jails or on our streets, those criminals should be removed. Our country is not a dormitory for people just here to make money or a hotel for those passing through. It is our home and no one else will look after it.
The things she said there are not particularly controversial if you ask a severely normal Brit. But, you know, if you are a indigenous white Brit and you say those things, you will absolutely be called a racist for it. So maybe Kemi Badenoch is the only person who can say those things without being tarred as a white supremacist. Although as soon as I say this, a very senior Labour MP, a black woman herself, said that Kemi Badenoch is the black face of white supremacy. So even though she's black, she's called a white supremacist, and I don't know.
You can't win, can you? Somebody recently was let off in court for describing Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman as coconuts, and I got the Oriel jokes and the house N-word jokes and things like that, or insults, I should say. They get it all the time, and it really is. The left are the real racists in the world. The liberal left and the progressives are the most disgusting people when it comes to outright, in-your-face racism. If Nigel Farage had said something similar about black people, he'd be crucified. Yeah. He will be thrown out of Parliament. He'd be deplatformed. He'd be cancelled, and it'd be shunned from all polite society, never to be seen again. The barefaced hypocrisy of the left is just butter clenching.
The two finalists in the UK race, Mr. Jenrick, who I think was even harder line than Kemi,
sure.
Both of them really seemed to me to be a response to Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Although Reform UK only got, 5 or 6 seats in the parliament, okay, they got millions of votes. And it was primarily for talking about mass immigration and the problems that flow therefrom. It seems to me that the Conservative Party's leadership was an attempt to deal with that. Would you agree with my assessment? And would you say that Kemi will be able to win any of those Nigel Farage Reform UK voters back, or are they with Nigel for good?
Right. Do you want the inside story on Kemi, which you won't necessarily hear this anywhere else? Kemi Badenoch, I think, is the establishments, the elites, the World Economic Forum types, the globalists is what I'm referring to, and she is the blobs, the swamp's choice, and so she said all the right things to get elected. Apparently, the person behind her campaign is a guy called Michael Gove, who used to be the Levelling Up minister, and he's a weasel, he's a snake. And there are two wings to the Conservative Party. One is sort of what's called the One Nation Tories, which is basically the left of the party. They're kind of woke. In fact, they're very woke. Mm-hmm. And then you have sort of the right of the party, which is the traditional side of Conservative, as it was under Margaret Thatcher. But basically, Kemi Badenoch is not the real deal. I think she was totally insincere. And her major fault, which will never be forgotten, is that she will not be looking to get Britain to leave the European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR. Now, what that does is it goes beyond. It goes, if you're American or whatever, there is one court beyond British courts you can appeal to in a case, and that's based in, I think it's based in Brussels. It's certainly based in Europe. And these judges are not British; they're foreign people, and they're creating British law. When they don't have any knowledge of British law. And there's a case recently of a Ugandan guy. He was part of a gang that were involved in a fracas with knives and baseball bats in Wood Green in North London. And a guy was stabbed, and he was placed in an ambulance by the paramedics. And this Ugandan-born guy went in there and stabbed him to death. And because he was they want at the end of his sentence, which comes up in about 3 or 4 years' time, they wanted to deport him back to Uganda, but the ECHR ruled that they couldn't because his mental health wasn't good enough, and the mental health services in Uganda weren't good enough to treat him. There are scores and scores. There was an Indian guy who, for example, was producing and selling child paedophilia. Some of it was AI generated. Some was actually real kids who were actually abused, and he produced them, he sold them, and he made money out of them. No, he won't be deported because of the decision from the ECHR, because we send him back to India. His right to a family life, I think it's Article 8 of the ECHR Charter. He won't be able to see his wife and children again, or partner and children again. There is the ECHR gives outrage after outrage when it comes to these judgments of people. We're not in charge of our borders. A foreign court is in charge of our borders.
I don't understand
ourselves.
that, because I know that the Brexit vote called to leave the EU. So, letting a European court be the court of final appeal to the UK sure doesn't sound like Brexit was followed through.
All right, let me just qualify that for you. The ECHR is not a part of the European Union.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Internally it's the European Court of Justice, which is the European one that's run by the European Union. But the ECHR is external to the EU. However, if you're a member of the EU, you have to be a member of the ECHR. So there is some tie-up there.